Most of the plants currently displayed in American garden centers will not survive past midsummer in your containers. Not because you made any mistakes, but simply because no one ever told you which ones are actually built to last. These 17 perennials return without fail, season after season. They handle drought, they handle neglect, they handle almost everything nature throws at them. And the one coming at number 12 actually becomes more beautiful the less attention you give it. Let's dive straight in. Before we reach plant number 1, drop in the comments right now which US state you are gardening in, because your USDA zone completely changes which of these plants will perform best in your specific situation. I will be referencing specific zones throughout this entire video. Find yours and stay focused. Plant number 1, Sedum. Every single leaf stores water within its own tissue, functioning like a built-in internal reservoir. Sedum does not rely on you remembering to water it. It relies entirely on itself. Documented field observations confirm that established sedum can endure 6 to 8 weeks of zero irrigation and bounce back without any lasting damage. Try that with anything else sitting in your container garden and see what happens. Sedum, planted in rich, heavily amended soil, grows tall, floppy, and visually unappealing. Sedum planted in lean, slightly poorer soil stays compact, vibrant in color, and structurally sound. Stop fertilizing it entirely. The plant rewards your deliberate neglect with better form, richer color, and stronger structure with every passing season. For variety choices, Autumn Fire produces deep copper-pink flower clusters from September through November and holds itself upright in containers without ever flopping over. Dragon's Blood grows low with vivid red foliage that deepens dramatically as fall temperatures begin to fall. Matrona is tall and architectural, with burgundy stems and dusty pink blooms that look as though they were professionally designed, without a single ounce of effort on your part. If you are located in USDA zones 3 through 9, covering Maine, the entire Midwest, the Pacific Northwest, the South, and most of the mountain states, Sedum grows as a cold, hardy perennial that endures hard freezes without any protection. In zones 9 and 10, provide afternoon shade during peak summer heat, and it performs just as dependably. Water sedum deeply once at the time of planting, then scale back to once every 2 to 3 weeks through summer. When temperatures start dropping in fall, stop watering altogether. The fall color display it produces will be the finest in your entire container garden. Plant number 2, Lavender. Lavender evolved on rocky Mediterranean hillsides with almost no nutritional soil and virtually zero moisture retention. Moisture-retaining potting soil is lavender's primary killer in containers. The soil most people instinctively reach for is exactly what destroys it. And here is the solution. Blend your standard potting mix with 1/3 coarse perlite or horticultural grit before planting. Use containers with a minimum of 3 drainage holes and never place saucers underneath them. That single adjustment makes lavender nearly indestructible in containers. For varieties, Hidcote is deep purple, compact, and the most cold-hardy English variety on the market, surviving down to Zone 5. If you are in the South or along the Gulf Coast, Phenomenal is your go-to variety. It handles heat and humidity better than any other lavender and performs dependably across zones 6 through 9. If fragrance is your top priority, Grasso carries a higher essential oil concentration than any other available variety and blooms continuously from June through August. Never fertilize lavender in containers, not once across the entire season. Rich nutrients produce soft, weak growth with noticeably diminished fragrance. The essential oil concentration, which creates both the scent and the natural insect-repelling effect, actually intensifies when the plant is kept slightly lean. Neglect is not merely acceptable with lavender, it is the correct and intentional technique. You can position lavender precisely where you spend your evenings outdoors. On warm nights, brush the foliage gently as you walk past. The oils release immediately. You have created a fragrant, mosquito-repelling personal space that cost $3 and a 5-gallon pot. Plant number 3, Russian sage. Once Russian sage establishes its root system, it blooms continuously from July through October. 4 straight months of blue-purple flowers rising on silver-white stems. Most flowering perennials give you 4 to 6 weeks of color. Russian sage gives you 4 full months. In container gardening, that is the difference between a plant that earns its place and one that simply occupies space. There is zero pest pressure. Deer avoid it entirely. The aromatic foliage naturally repels insects. And even after blooming ends, the silver architectural stem structure delivers genuine winter interest when every other container on your street looks bare and lifeless. In zones 4 through 9, stretching from Minnesota straight down through Georgia and across to the Pacific coast, Russian sage grows as a completely reliable perennial that demands exactly 1 maintenance task per year. Cut it back to 6 inches in late February or early March. That is it. 30 seconds of work. In return, it comes back fuller and more floriferous than the season before. That exchange is almost unreasonably generous. In Zone 4 specifically, move the container against a protected south-facing wall before the hard freeze arrives. In Zones 8 and 9, it may behave as semi-evergreen, retaining its silver stem structure through mild winters and providing year-round container interest without any additional effort on your part. One more thing about Russian sage that most gardening content never mentions. It actually looks better in a container than it does planted in the ground. The restricted root system encourages more compact, upright growth than open soil planting does. You are not limiting this plant by putting it in a pot. You are genuinely improving it. Plant number 4, Hens and Chicks. This is the only container plant that actively works to give you more plants without being asked. It multiplies on its own timeline and simply hands you the results. The mother rosette, known as the hen, continuously generates smaller rosettes around its outer edge. Those are the chicks. Each chick is a genetically complete, fully independent plant. You can separate it with your fingers, drop it into a fresh container with minimal soil, and it establishes itself without any special care. The mother hen blooms once after several years, then dies. But by that point, she has produced enough chicks to fill multiple containers several times over. The plant replaces itself and expands your collection at the exact same time. For varieties, cobweb hens and chicks is covered in fine white threads across the rosette surface that look precisely like delicate spider silk. It stops people in their tracks. Red beauty transitions from green to deep burgundy as fall temperatures descend. The color change begins in September and peaks in November, giving you a plant that looks entirely different at the end of the season than it did at the beginning. Pacific blue ice produces blue-gray rosettes that appear almost artificial in their perfection. Have you ever grown hens and chicks before? And did yours multiply the way they are supposed to? Because some growers get dozens of chicks from a single plant within one season, while others get almost none. They evolved in alpine environments, the Swiss Alps, the Carpathian Mountains, exposed rocky ridges at high elevation with scorching summers, bitter winters, and almost no soil to speak of. Your container garden, even a neglected one, is genuinely luxurious by comparison. This plant has been surviving conditions harder than anything in your yard for thousands of years. Your container garden, even a neglected one, is genuinely luxurious by comparison. This plant has been surviving conditions harder than anything in your yard for thousands of years. They thrive in containers as shallow as 4 inches deep, making them ideal for windowsill gardens, wall planters, and small balconies, where deeper containers simply are not practical. A hen in a well-draining container with room to spread directs her energy into reproduction. Drop your experience in the comments right now, because I genuinely want to know how many people have already been growing these and getting the results they deserve. Walker's Low produces continuous clouds of blue-purple flowers on arching stems with gray-green aromatic foliage. Butterflies are powerfully attracted to it. You will have visible wildlife activity around your containers all summer long without planting anything specifically for that purpose. The foliage releases an herbal scent when brushed that most biting insects find deeply unpleasant. When the first flush of flowers begins looking tired in July, cut the entire plant back by half. It looks severe for about 10 days. Then it surges back with a second flush that is often heavier than the first. You receive 2 complete bloom cycles from one plant within a single season. Most gardeners skip this cut and unknowingly lose 6 to 8 weeks of color every summer, never understanding why their catmint seem to underperform. In zones 3 through 8, Walker's Low is fully cold hardy and requires water only once weekly once established, even through peak summer heat. In zones 8 and 9, afternoon shade prevents the foliage from scorching in extreme conditions, but the plant performs dependably across the entire growing season. Now compare catmint directly to petunias, the most commonly purchased container plant across America. Petunias require deadheading every few days, weekly fertilizing, and complete replacement every single year. Catmint needs 1 trim per season, no fertilizer, and returns stronger every spring for years on end. The only reason more Americans are not growing catmint in containers is that garden centers make significantly more money selling you petunias annually. That is the straightforward answer. Plant number 6, Hosta, sum and substance. Hostas are genuinely more beautiful in containers than in ground plantings. Not equally beautiful, more beautiful. And the reason is specific. Containers eliminate slugs, the primary destroyer of hosta foliage in the ground. And containers give you portability. You move them to your best display location in summer and to a protected spot before hard freeze in fall. Sum and Substance produces enormous chartreuse gold leaves up to 18 inches across that glow in shade as though lit from within. Halcyon has powder blue foliage that is naturally slug resistant and remains clean and attractive all season without any intervention. Patriot carries deep green leaves with crisp white margins that look hand-painted by someone who knew exactly what they were doing. In zones 3 through 9, one of the widest cold hardiness ranges of any shade perennial available to American gardeners, hostas handle hard freezes reliably. In zones 3 through 5, move containers against a protected wall or into an unheated garage before the freeze arrives. In zones 8 and 9, morning sun only. Afternoon shade is essential for keeping foliage clean through summer heat. A hosta in a well-managed container does not ever need to be replaced. It divides naturally every few years. You separate it into 2 or 3 plants, move them into fresh containers with fresh soil mix, and begin again at 0 cost. Container hostas entering their 12th year are not unusual. The original $3 plant has enough divisions to fill 8 containers. That is the mathematics of perennial gardening that annual gardeners never get to experience. And it is one of the most genuinely satisfying aspects of this entire hobby. Plant number 7, Coral Bells, Heuchera. Heuchera is available in burgundy, silver, lime green, caramel, orange, and near black. More color range than most flowering plants offer. And that color is present from the moment the plant breaks dormancy in spring until hard freeze arrives in fall, or year-round in zones 7 through 9, where it remains evergreen. You are not waiting for bloom season. You have color in your containers from day one. Palace Purple produces deep burgundy leaves that appear almost black in certain light conditions, one of the most dramatic foliage effects available in container gardening. In zones 4 through 9, Heuchera is reliably cold hardy. In zones 4 through 6, the foliage may flatten during hard freezes, but rebounds cleanly in spring. In zones 7 through 9, it stays evergreen and provides container color and structure across all 12 months of the year. Most people position it in deep shade and then wonder why the color fades. Heuchera produces its most intense foliage color in bright indirect light, or 2 to 3 hours of gentle morning sun, not deep shade. The deeper the shade, the more washed out the color becomes. Move your Heuchera containers to where they catch morning light and watch the color intensity shift within 2 weeks. That single adjustment makes more difference than any fertilizer, any soil amendment, or any other intervention you could possibly make. Plant number 8, Astilbe. When people see an Astilbe in bloom, they assume it is difficult. It produces feathery plumes that look as though they came straight from a professional florist's arrangement. People automatically assume that level of beauty demands that level of effort. It does not. And in containers, Astilbe performs better than it does in any ground planting you will ever encounter. In the ground, Astilbe is entirely dependent on whatever moisture the surrounding soil holds. In a dry summer, ground-planted Astilbe struggles. The plumes emerge smaller and the bloom period shortens. In a container, you control exactly how much water the plant receives. That control produces larger plumes, longer bloom periods, and cleaner foliage than open ground planting in the same garden. The container is not a compromise for this plant. It is an upgrade. Bridal Veil produces pure white plumes that glow in shade with an elegance that stops people mid-conversation. Fanal has deep red flowers rising above dark bronze foliage, one of the most dramatic color combinations available in shade container gardening. Sprite is compact and shell pink, perfect for smaller containers, and has won more awards than nearly any other Astilbe variety in American horticulture. In zones 3 through 8, Astilbe is fully cold-hardy and returns reliably every spring with more flowering stems than the previous season. Unlike most drought-tolerant perennials on this list, Astilbe genuinely prefers consistent moisture, which containers make straightforward to manage. Morning sun with afternoon shade is the ideal placement in zones 7 and 8. After blooming ends, do not immediately cut the spent plumes. Left standing through fall, they transition to a warm, russet brown that provides genuine container interest into November. Then cut them back in late fall or early spring. Either timing works perfectly. After blooming ends, do not immediately cut the spent plumes. Left standing through fall, they transition to a warm, russet brown that provides genuine container interest into November. Then cut them back in late fall or early spring. Either timing works perfectly. Plant number 9, Japanese Painted Fern. This fern makes people stop walking and ask what it is every single time. The silver and burgundy coloring looks as though someone painted each frond individually by hand. It is completely natural. It is completely effortless to grow, and it does something in a shady container arrangement that no other plant on this list can accomplish. It adds a metallic, almost luminous quality that makes everything surrounding it look more intentional. Burgundy lace has more pronounced purple tones than the standard variety and is the most dramatic of all painted fern options available to American gardeners. Ghost is nearly pure silver, almost luminous in deep shade, and one of the most visually striking foliage plants you can place in a container, regardless of price point. The classic pictum, silver gray with a burgundy midrib running down each frond, remains one of the best performing varieties after decades of presence in American nurseries. Hardy in zones 3 through 8, it dies back completely in winter and returns reliably in spring with more energy than before. Here is one specific thing most growers get wrong. Do not cut back the old fronds in fall. Leave them standing through winter. They provide natural insulation for the crown during hard freezes. Remove them in early spring when you see fresh growth emerging from the base. That timing protects the plant through its most vulnerable period. Standard green ferns look exactly like what they are. Japanese Painted Fern looks like something pulled from a designer's curated arrangement. Plant number 10, Virginia Sweet Spire. This is the plant that proves container gardening does not stop when summer ends. While every other perennial on your porch goes dormant, Virginia Sweet Spire is changing color, holding structure, and preparing to flower before winter has even finished. In spring, it produces clusters of delicate flowers before most other perennials have even broken dormancy, often while frost still coats the ground in the morning. Through summer, the thick, glossy leaves provide bold container structure. In fall, those same leaves begin transitioning to deep burgundy red as temperatures descend. And through winter, the evergreen foliage holds its form and color while every other container around it looks empty and forgotten. Hardy in zones 3 through 8, it tolerates deep shade, drought, poor soil, and temperatures well below zero once established. In zones 3 and 4, the winter color display is actually most dramatic. The coldest temperatures produce the deepest burgundy tones, and the contrast against snow or frost is genuinely spectacular. There are Virginia sweet spire containers that have not been fertilized once since planting, watered only when remembered, which in winter means almost never, and never divided. Every single spring, they flower before the thought of opening any other container for the season has even crossed the mind. That is the standard every plant on this list meets, and Virginia sweet spire meets it with less effort than almost any of them. Here is something worth doing right now. Think of one person in your life who keeps spending money at the garden center every spring, keeps losing plants by July, and keeps believing the problem is themselves. It is not them. It is the plants they are choosing. Send this video to that person right now. You do not need a message, just the link. That one action could save them years of frustration and hundreds of dollars. Plant number 11, Black-Eyed Susan, Rudbeckia. This plant blooms from July through October, draws goldfinches directly to your containers, and becomes more floriferous every year it grows. It also asks almost nothing of you after the first season. One mature Black-Eyed Susan produces between 80 and 120 simultaneous blooms at peak flowering, not spread across the season, but all at once. The mass of golden yellow against dark centers creates a color impact in containers that is almost impossible to replicate with any other single plant at the same price point. Goldsturm is the benchmark variety. Award-winning, reliable, compact enough for containers, and blooming continuously from July through September. Prairie Sun has yellow petals with green centers instead of dark ones, a fresher, more contemporary look that stands apart from the standard. Cherry Brandy produces unusual copper-orange tones that set it completely apart from every other yellow-flowering perennial in your container lineup. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. Here's the performance fact most people overlook. Black-Eyed Susan performs better in its second and third year than it does as a new planting. The root system strengthens over winter and produces more flowering stems with each successive season. A plant you purchase this spring will be more impressive next summer and even more impressive the summer after that. You are not simply buying a plant. You are making a compounding investment in your container garden. Leave the seed heads standing through fall and winter. Goldfinches, chickadees, and housefinches feed on them actively from October through February. Your container becomes a wildlife feeding station that costs nothing to operate once the plant is established. Seed heads left standing through fall and winter feed goldfinches, chickadees, and housefinches, documented by the National Wildlife Federation as one of the top 5 bird-feeding native plants in America. It self-seeds into surrounding containers, giving you free plants every season. Plant number 12, Lamb's Ear, Stachy's. This is the plant mentioned at the very beginning, the one that grows more beautiful the less you do to it. And understanding exactly why matters, because the science behind it is one of the most genuinely fascinating things in container gardening. Lamb's ear originates from rocky, sun-baked hillsides in Turkey and Iran. The leaves are covered in dense, silver-white hairs. Those hairs are not decorative. They are a survival system. They reflect intense sunlight to prevent the leaf from overheating. They trap a thin layer of dry air against the leaf surface to slow moisture loss. When you overwater lamb's ear, those hairs flatten against the leaf, trap moisture instead of air, and the plant rots from the outside in. When you underwater it, the hairs stay upright, stay silver, and the plant grows more striking with every week of drought. Neglect is not a mistake with this plant. It is the correct growing technique. Big Ears produces leaves up to 6 inches long, the most dramatic variety for container display, and the one that generates the most reactions from visitors. Helen von Stein rarely produces flowers, which means all plant energy flows directly into producing the silver foliage. It is the best variety when pure visual impact is the priority. Silky Fleece is smaller and more compact, perfect for mixed container arrangements where a silver accent is needed without a dominant presence. Hardy in zones 4 through 8. In zones 9 and 10, provide afternoon shade. The dense hairs can handle intense sun, but extreme southern heat combined with humidity creates conditions beyond what the plant evolved to manage. Place lamb's ear next to almost any other container plant, and it does something those plants cannot. It invites touch. People reach out and brush it without thinking. That tactile quality, combined with the silver color, makes it one of the most commented on plants in any container garden. And you achieve all of that by watering it less than anything else on your patio. Each bloom lasts exactly 1 day. Each plant produces 30 to 50 buds per stem. The result is continuous color for months from a plant that asks for almost nothing after the first season. Blooming runs continuously from June through September. It multiplies naturally every 3 to 4 years, dividing itself into additional plants you can separate and move into fresh containers at zero cost. Available in every color except true blue and pure white. Stella d'Oro is the gold standard for containers. Compact, reblooming from spring through frost, and universally reliable across American climates. Happy Returns is pale yellow and slightly more heat tolerant. Purple d'Oro delivers the same compact, dependable growth in deep purple. Hardy in zones 3 through 9, evergreen varieties in zones 7 through 9 retain foliage through mild winters. Dormant varieties in zones 3 through 6 die back completely and return with full vigor every spring. Drop in the comments what color daylily you have or want in your containers, because the variety selection is genuinely overwhelming, and it would be great to know what American gardeners are most drawn to. Plant number 14, Ornamental Grass, Karl Forster. No other container plant does what ornamental grass does. Movement, sound, 4-season structure, and zero maintenance after the first year. Spring brings fresh green vertical structure back to containers. Summer develops the characteristic weak-colored feathery plumes. Fall transitions to warm gold while seed heads actively feed birds. Winter provides standing architectural structure, the only container plant that looks intentional in January when everything else looks abandoned. Karl Forster feather reed grass stands narrow and upright at 4 to 5 feet, the most architectural container grass available, and winner of the Perennial Plant of the Year award. Morning Light Miscanthus has fine, silver-edged leaves with a graceful arching form and pink plumes in fall. Blue fescue forms compact blue-gray mounds at 10 to 12 inches, perfect for smaller containers and mixed arrangements. Karl Forster is hardy in zones 4 through 9, Morning Light in zones 5 through 9, Blue fescue in zones 4 through 8. Cut ornamental grasses back to 4 to 6 inches in late February. That is the complete maintenance requirement for the entire year. One task, 5 minutes, then watch it return taller and fuller than the season before. Winter provides standing architectural structure, the only container plant that looks intentional in January when everything else looks abandoned. Plant number 15. Coneflower, Echinacea. Native plant, medicinal history going back centuries, 4 months of blooms, seeds that feed birds through winter, and virtually indestructible in containers. Coneflower does more for your outdoor space than any other single plant on this entire list. Flowers from June through September with minimal deadheading required. Magnus Purple is the classic. Larger flower heads than the wild species, a more upright habit, and incredibly reliable. White Swan is pure white with orange centers and slightly more shade-tolerant than purple varieties. Hot Papaya produces double orange-red flowers and is the most dramatic modern variety available. Hardy in zones 3 through 9. In zones 4 and 5, place containers against a protected south-facing wall during the coldest weeks. In zones 7 through 9, bloom season extends well into the later months, giving you an extended window of winter flowers. Most gardeners spend winter looking at empty containers. Gardeners who grow coneflower spend winter watching birds. Plant number 16, Hellebore, Ice and Roses series. This plant blooms in snow. While every other plant in your containers lies dormant, Hellebore is actively producing flowers. It blooms from December through April, the longest single bloom period of any perennial available to American gardeners. Flowers come in white, pink, burgundy, yellow, and near black. Evergreen foliage provides 12 months of container structure. Thick, deeply divided, glossy leaves that look architectural year-round without any intervention. Ice and Roses Red produces deep burgundy flowers blooming December through March. Wedding Party has pure white double flowers blooming January through April. Penny's Pink delivers soft pink with darker veining and is one of the most elegant Hellebore varieties available in the American market. Hardy in zones 4 through 9. In zones 4 and 5, place containers against a protected south-facing wall during the coldest weeks. In zones 7 through 9, bloom season extends from November through April, giving you 5 full months of winter flowers. Most gardeners spend winter looking at empty containers. Hellebore gardeners spend winter looking at flowers. That difference costs exactly the same amount of effort. Plant number 17, Evergreen Sedum, Autumn Fire. The final plant on this list makes your containers look intentional and designed in every single season. In spring, tight rosettes of fresh blue-green emerge clean and sculptural. Through summer, growth fills the container and stems strengthen. In fall, flower heads transition from pink to deep copper red, the peak ornamental value of the entire year. Through winter, dried seed heads and sturdy stems hold structure through frost and snow, providing genuine architectural interest when nothing else does. Hardy in zones 3 through 9, completely drought-tolerant once established, containers can go weeks without water in winter with zero damage. It never needs dividing. It grows more attractive and substantial every year without any intervention. Between Hellebore and Evergreen Sedum, you have winter containers that look professionally designed. Both plants got there by being almost completely left alone from October through March. We are not ending here because you can plant every single one of these 17 perennials and still struggle if you do not know 3 specific things. These are the mistakes that destroy more container plants than drought, cold, and neglect combined. The first, drainage kills more plants than drought ever will. The #1 killer of container perennials across America is not underwatering. It is overwatering combined with inadequate drainage. Roots sitting in waterlogged soil cannot access oxygen. They suffocate and rot. And by the time visible damage appears in the foliage, it is already too late. Every container needs a minimum of 3 half-inch drainage holes. Add a 2-inch layer of coarse gravel at the base before adding soil. Never place saucers under drought-tolerant perennials. Water should drain visibly within 15 to 20 seconds of application. If it pools longer than 30 seconds, your mix is too dense and your roots are already at risk. The second, container size determines everything. A perennial in a 10-inch container needs water every 1 to 2 days in summer. The same plant in a 16-inch container needs water every 3 to 4 days. The same plant in a 24-inch container needs water once to twice weekly. The minimum size for every perennial on this list is 16 inches in diameter. Anything smaller defeats the entire purpose of low-maintenance gardening. The second, container size determines everything. A perennial in a 10-inch container needs water every 1 to 2 days in summer. The same plant in a 16-inch container needs water every 3 to 4 days. The same plant in a 24-inch container needs water once to twice weekly. The minimum size for every perennial on this list is 16 inches in diameter. Anything smaller defeats the entire purpose of low-maintenance gardening. In winter, small containers freeze solid. A perennial in a 10-inch pot in Zone 5 has almost no insulation between its roots and a hard freeze. The same plant in a 24-inch container has the thermal mass to protect roots through temperatures that would kill them in a smaller pot. Container size is not just about growth, it is about winter survival. The third, the soil mix that does half your work. Never use standard garden soil. Too heavy, poor drainage. Never use cheap potting mix, mostly bark, holds too much moisture. The correct recipe is 50% quality potting mix, 30% coarse perlite, and 20% compost. It drains well, holds enough moisture, and feeds slowly through the season without synthetic fertilizer. Each spring, remove the top 2 inches and replace with fresh compost mixed with slow-release granular fertilizer. 10 minutes per container, once per year. That is the complete annual soil maintenance for every plant on this list. Here is what needs to be said directly before this ends. If you are in your 50s, 60s, or beyond, you have spent enough summers replacing plants that were never going to make it. You have spent enough money on annuals that looked beautiful in April and were gone by July. Subscribe to Primal Life right now, because every single week there is content built specifically to make your garden easier, more beautiful, and more rewarding without asking more of your time. Free, always will be. Now, tell us in the comments which 3 plants from this list you are adding to your containers this season, and which state you are gardening in. Your zone matters, and the advice you act on should actually fit your climate. Now go fill those containers